Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks. The one and only V, the Gorilla Economist, coming to you live. We have with us the one and only Erik Gajewski. You can follow Erik over at TradCatKnight. Amazing YouTube channel. Erik breaks down a lot of the geopolitical, geostrategic events that are especially from a Catholic viewpoint. You can also check out his website, tradcatnight.org. He is an ardent supporter of truth, of justice, of humility, and righteousness in this wicked and untoward generation that we're living in. Erik, welcome aboard. There's a lot of things to talk about, especially recently, the shenanigans. I wouldn't even call it shenanigans, but the evil that is in the Vatican. All these things are starting to unravel. Erik, you've been highlighting this for oh my God, for decades at this point, my man. Where do you want to begin?
Well, first and foremost, I wanted to check in with you, V. It was a little difficult getting a hold of you there for a couple of months, and I was starting to get a little concerned. I thought maybe the Obama administration had hijacked you with all those vacations you've been on recently. I thought maybe Obama took you out for a golf.
It was Michael. Michael. I mean Michelle.
But in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, a lot of crazy things obviously happening in the church. We've been exposing this Masonic Marxist infiltration of the Catholic Church for quite some time. It ties in with the message of Fatima, which we talked about last time, gentlemen. And yeah, I mean, that's just it. It's crazy because there are a lot of Catholics now waking up to the things that I've been saying for many years. And, you know, they no longer call me crazy. They want to come. They want to, now be nice to me. And they realize there's something just dreadful happening in the hierarchy of the church. And, we see recently what has transpired, obviously, with the McCarrick case. We now find out, I don't know if you gentlemen realize this, but this did come out. Benedict XVI had censored and put some parameters in place to kind of keep in check this gay mafia that pushed him out. Remember, I told you how I believe Benedict XVI was forced out? Okay. Well, and that's the reality. That's what happened. He was forced out. He didn't really willfully resign. But anyway, it turns out that Francis just whitewashes that whole situation. He goes above and beyond the censures that Benedict XVI put in place. He actually promoted McCarrick so that over here in the United States, he could get more liberal cardinals established, such as Kupich out in Chicago, and then also the other guy there, Tobin, out in New Jersey, who's an uber liberal. So we see this whole gay mafia, like really uber leftist, forming in the Vatican, and they're trying to quell anyone that's in their path. And take a look at Francis's response. I don't know if you saw, he was recently over at the World Meeting of Sodomites over there in Ireland, where he had his pastel vestments on, and he has literally had the 666 insignia on it for you conspiratorial freaks out there. But yeah,
no way, really?
Yeah, the vestments. You know how Google has that kind of 666 embedded into it, the Google symbol. The red, yellow, green symbol.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it's sort of Celtic. I mean, they try to tie it back to pagan times, but it's truly an occultic sign when you study it. But anyway, it was right on the pastel vestments. Then the mitre that he was wearing was representative of the LGBT rainbow flag. It sort of looked like the Baphomet, so which raised flags in the traditional Catholic world. But his response to it was crazy, because here he's talking to the people in Ireland and he's saying, "Yo, we're so sorry. We're gonna put an end to this." And then all of a sudden, within a 24-hour span, all of these reports came out. Another report came out yesterday, gentlemen, that he removed Cardinal Wuerl from his Cardinal Mueller from his position because he was actually following protocol as it relates to these cases when they're brought to, the Catholic Church in relation to the sex abuse crimes that have been going on. So he removed him, wanted him out of the way. Then there was reports just yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, but there was another Monsignor, high-ranking official in the Vatican, who got busted for cocaine-laced sodomite orgies in the past year. Well, apparently Francis gave him the Vatican apartment, and he knew basically what was up. He knew that this guy was shady. And so it just adds up to him. So much to the point where there's been talk. Leo Zagami emailed me the other day, and he said that his inside sources say France is going to resign. However, I just posted an article today from yahoo.news. I don't know how reliable the source is, but they're now saying he's not going to resign. So within the conservative world and the Catholic Church, gentlemen, there is a cry for his resignation, but from my perspective, he's not even the Pope. You can't resign from something you don't hold office in. Benedict the 16th is your true Pope, and it's going to play into the hands of prophecy here soon. But oh my goodness, it just floors me to see how some Catholics are just being very lax about this. I mean, I get fired up. I mean, you listen to my talk with Sean at the SGT report the other day. I'm like snapping. There's one Pope, I don't know if you guys know this, in the medieval times, in speaking about the sodomite clergy, he said they should be put to death. That's how serious it is. So I'm not sure that many Catholics are taking it as seriously as they should be. But, you know, we've got to continue to expose this, because this pedophile, I don't know how you want to put it, mafia. I mean, just it runs deep. It's not just the Vatican. You guys obviously know. You probably cover this more than I do with what's going on with the Clintons, and you know, it's all over the place. You
Eric,
can't escape.
I'm just looking at this picture real quick of the Pope in Ireland, and there's the Happy Bridge.
The audio playing in the background, picking up an echo.
Oh, I don't know. Is that me? Oh, okay. Is it
gone? Okay, keep going. Yep, I think it's gone.
Okay. All right, so I'm looking at the picture of Happening Bridge in Dublin, and they're like, this is from the Criminal News Network, CNN. They're saying rainbow flags and blue ribbons are tied to Happening Bridge in Dublin to remember the victims of the Catholic Church clerical sex abuse. I'm like, at what point did the gay community hijack the sex abuse against children? Do you see how they're purposely misdirecting? They're making it like an LGBT thing, like this is a victimization of LGBT. No, these were kids that were sodomized and brutalized and abused. Like, it sickens me when I see this crap, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the one thing I have to stress. I've been trying to stress this on my last media report run, if you will, media appearances. You can't equate the Vatican to Catholicism, folks. I know most of your listening audience is probably not Catholic. It's a little bit difficult to put it into layman's terms, but the Catholic Church has been usurped. It's been run over. It's been infiltrated by these Masons and Marxists. And when you really truly study this particular sect, these sects, there's that connection between not only sodomy, but pedophilia. So I'm not giving a complete whitewash and saying, okay, every single one of these persons were Masons or Marxists. No, because I mean, people are people sin. But by and large, it's from the enemy itself. It's the whole wolf in sheep clothing situation. Take a look at Francis. I mean, my goodness, I've been saying this for years. I said this the last time I was on your program. He's a high-ranking Freemason. He gives off all the occultic hand signs. His doctrine is Masonic. And you know what his response was on the way back from Ireland? Get this. After all this news and reports have been coming out, he says, well, you guys, you've seen all the reports. You can make you make up your own minds. Does that sound like someone who didn't have his hand in the situation? He wasn't even trying to defend himself. I mean, what can you do at this point? He doesn't care. He's been on record as saying, I don't care about these websites like mine specifically who call him out for heresy. I don't care. The man is obstinate. There's nothing you can do about this guy. The only thing we can do about it is pray that he's taken out, so to speak. I mean, a lot of people are calling for his resignation, but I don't see that happening. So we're stuck in a pickle. And yeah, I agree with you. You know, the leftist agenda is there with the whole LGBT pedophilia side of things. And my goodness. And this is why, folks, I just want everyone to know before we go any further, before I forget, I got a new website up and running. CJ and I were talking off air. I don't know if you know this. It's kind of like TradCatKnight on steroids. It's TradCatKnight.org. So if you get over there, I mean, you are going to be pounded with information. It's highly interactive. There's all types of, message boards, chat rooms. I got the live shows housed there. We're going to start the special guest podcast. But for those of you who are not familiar with this work, because I see you picked up quite a few followers here on YouTube since the last time I talked to you, TradCatKnight is the #1 ranked Catholic channel, period, according to FeedSpot. I'm a top 15 Christian channel, and you know how many Christian channels there are out there. Right. And I've got all the top, guests coming on. So, and I cover it all, as V said. I mean, I literally cover it all: health, GMOs, FEMA camps, HARP, scalar, economics, geoengineering. As a matter of fact, V, you're going to be joining me on the 4th, which will be good. So good to get your analysis on all the latest. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this a little bit right now. I don't know if you want to jump into the whole geopolitical scene, because it's starting to get a little unnerving what's happening down there in Syria. Yeah, I mean, this is something as Catholics, remember, we talked about this because, and I just posted this on the website too today, so you'll see one of the prophecies on TradCatKnight.org if you get over there. Per Catholic prophecy, and I know I'm speaking to predominantly, the quote-unquote conservative world, we get attacked by Russia, folks. I can't stress this enough. I told Sean the other day, there's numerous prophecies which indicate Russia with her secret weapons are going to battle America, strike America, however you want to translate it from the original Italian, and overrun Europe. And I'm not trying to fearmonger, but I at least want to get that perspective out there, if and when that happens. So you've heard it here first. And this is why I'm trying to get my people very much prepared, because they're trying to drag us into a next major war. I think we all can agree on that. And what way do you do that? You got to start funneling in some more 9/11 type of events. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see those types of events soon, considering Russia, right, within this past year, gentlemen, they gave us our last warning, right? Didn't Putin say, that's it, this is your last warning, no more false flag chemical attacks? And what's the talk been the past 72 hours? I don't know what the latest is today. Maybe you guys can break break the news, but it's getting a little unnerving. I'm not liking what I'm seeing happening down in that area, and also in the Ukraine area too. Russia has held their largest war games, folks, since the 80s, and they're doing so with China, I think, recently. And then on the other side of the fence, you've got NATO doing some large-scale exercises in the Latvia area, and this is the area that Father Malachi Martin said pay attention to as it relates to the next outbreak of war. So again, I'm not trying to fearmonger. I just want to at least get that perspective out. Feel free to disagree with it, but at least what we in the traditional Catholic world are kind of seeing, viewing. We're praying that it doesn't happen, obviously, because my goodness, the technology that they have, gentlemen, I don't even know how many millions or billions would be lost, but it's pretty serious. But I don't know what your guys' take, what you're seeing in Syria. And I wasn't able to check out some of the news this morning, so I don't know if there's been any more recent developments with that. But yeah, it's getting a little bit more dire.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation. I mean, you have now that the Russians have come forward and be like, hey, by the way, guys, there's 12 quote unquote specialist individuals that have come into Idlib. It looks like they're going to stage a false flag chemical attack. Here's the video proof. Here's the photographs. Here's the place they're going to do it. Here's the building they're hiding in. And then the Syrian government also went to the UN and said, here's the evidence that they're prepping another false flag, another gas attack to be blamed against President Bashar al-Assad, who's won over 99% of the country. Is already under Syrian governmental control. Idlib is the last holdout. So in the face of like this incredible, insurmountable evidence, the question that I would have for the deep state is, will the deep state pull off an attack, a false flag, as a pretext for them to, bring us into some sort of a larger conflagration? I think it remains to be seen, because if they do this, I mean, no one's buying the story anymore. No one buys it. Like, even when Trump says, well, you got to go out there and shoot some missiles because they hit the children. What are they hitting? They're hitting like an empty building. They're hitting a deserted airfield. They're, one of the things on the strategic forefront is, you forget the stupid political rhetoric and the political theater that's happening. One of the facts that remains is that the Russian and American military are in constant communication with each other. They're in constant communication. And that's one thing that the President Trump has made very clear. I also know that from some of my military sources, is that they're in constant communication, and because nobody wants a World War III type scenario. Nobody wants it. They're trying to prevent it from happening. And but you have these interlopers, and you got to also understand who is ISIS, Al Qaeda, Al Nusra. These are all interchangeable names. These are all interchangeable hats on the same group of people in the same database. But the question remains is who's funding them, who's taking care of them? And we know that one of the ways that they're being funded is through the Saudis. So isn't it funny that the Saudi foreign minister right now has been called to Moscow And Lavrov told him to his face, hey, here's the deal. We don't want any of your interference. We don't want you to go ahead and start supplying logistics because there is a potential of false flag. So the Russians are calling the Saudis out on it. And then the Russians, on top of that, already had a talk with Erdogan in Turkey, saying, hey, here's the deal. We know that you don't like Bashar al-Assad, but we don't want you to, create an environment in which a false flag occurs. So we just need you to, because we don't want to break the alliance that we have with you, because, the Turks have been ostracized quite a bit, and, they got energy and pipeline deals right now that have been recently freshly signed with the Russians. They don't want to screw that up. So it's a very remarkable situation. So in spite of the fact that right now the Russians have called everybody out, they kind of exposed everything. They got the Saudis to sit on the sidelines, hopefully. They got the Turks in order. If the deep state does pull off an attack, it would be the most dumbest, blatantly obvious false flag in the history of false flags. It would be. I'm just waiting for the live feed of the Russian satellite to be overhead, and as they record the whole entire false flag go through. I mean, those satellites are so good they can read the time off your wristwatch. So we close up of Walid and Hamed as they're lighting up a rocket, and then here comes the white helmets with no gas mask or gloves, there to save the victims.
Yeah, and that's a fair point, though. More and more people are becoming awake due to your work, due to my work, and that's all we can really do. Again, I pray that it doesn't happen. It's not like I want it to happen. I pray that it doesn't. And then, CJ and I were talking off air, kind of joking around a little bit, this whole McCain situation. I literally put the TV on just for 2 minutes. I wanted to just take a quick break from what I was doing this morning. And that was like the headline news. And, you see Megan crying, and I just had to shut it right back off. I couldn't even look at it. Just what was going on with that. I mean, you just see all the pictures with him and all the terrorists that he's been photographed with. And that's it. People, I think, are waking up to this whole neocon kind of angle and realizing that, as you mentioned, it runs deeper than the surface level. And so that's what we can continue to do, V. One of the things I failed to mention, kind of backtracking real quick. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place this morning. It's been somewhat busy. I did want to mention I'm going to have one of the top investigative journalists right now in the Catholic world on my program this Sunday night, who's actually been hunting down, like he literally will go to the churches and like videotape this and put it up on his Facebook page. His name's George Newmeyer, and he's been all over the place, mainstream media, this or that. Okay. And he's been thrown out of churches, and just basically told to move on. Well, anyway, he's going to be joining me this night. So you're not going to want to miss that interview on TradCatKnight.org, because I'm sure he's going to have a lot of developments, since the last time I talked to him on Facebook over the past 48 hours. So I hope you guys continue to speak about this. This is something we can't be silent on, no matter really who you are, because it's a very serious thing when you start tapping into the children. And it's just, I mean, I don't know if you guys read some of the report of the whole Pennsylvania case, because it hits home. Yeah, like the Pennsylvania case came out about a week or so ago, and it was 300 priests that were allegedly indicted, and it spanned over, I think it was like 3 decades. So nothing was done about it. So everyone who wants to just blame Francis, well, guess what? You got to go back to John Paul II, who didn't do anything about it. Right. Benedict XVI, to a slight degree, although I mentioned before, he was trying to censor this gay mafia towards the end. And this is why ultimately he was pushed out, because that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to normalize, sodomy and pedophilia, as just in the mainstream. I mean, that's happening in the mainstream. So anyways, it hits home because one of the dioceses that was involved, there were 6 of them involved, is Pittsburgh, and that's very close to me. It's about a half hour away. Now, it was interesting. I've been telling people for quite some time, on the basis of the false doctrines that's been coming through this post-Vatican II church, to stay away from, these prelates and priests until they get their act together. That's what Catholic church teaching tells us to do. Well, it turns out this one bishop who is just an uber modernist. He's a false Catholic. He's actually had barbecues around around the corner from me with one of my neighbors. His name's Bishop Zubik. Well, guess what? This George Newmeyer guy that's going to be on my program, he got wind of certain sources and information. It comes out that this guy was a part of the gay mafia, and his nickname was the French Kisser. So, yeah, I was just like, all the hair on the back of my head stood up. I'm like, This is the guy who's been speaking at my
names these guys come up with, man.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. So it's like a whole underground underbelly, you know, that you don't even realize exists. And you know, they're wolves in sheep.
I heard Pope Francis's secret name is Dirty Sanchez, but you know,
yeah, he probably has about
his times in Argentina. Oh, the stories.
Yeah, the latest is too with that whole resignation talk. Apparently, like Argentina doesn't even want him back. So, yeah, I don't know where he's going to end up. He might end up like, he might end up like at a Boston chicken market, you know, somewhere in.
One could only hope, but most likely it's going to be France. He's going to have some sort of plea deal set up.
Oh goodness, but yeah, in all seriousness, folks, one of the things I did want to stress is one of the comments that he's had over the past year, over the last year or two, is when he's been indicted by some of us as being a Marxist. He says, well, I'm not a Marxist. I've got a lot of great friends that are Marxists. Yeah, as if that's cool. But he says communists make the best Christians. He has literally said that. That's not.
Yeah, I've heard the idiot say that. What a flippin' moron he is.
Yeah. Oh, he's a high-ranking Freemason. But what I tried to do recently is cover how, from the Catholic perspectives, this whole Robin Hood economics, I call it, the socialist game plan, which you see trying to be unveiled in countries. I know you guys covered this more, you know, Greece, Venezuela. You see these people eating out of garbage cans and trying to track down zoo animals to get, you know, a burger at the end of the night. I mean, it's madness. This is what they want to bring to America eventually. But the bottom line is the Catholic Church has infallibly condemned any such notion of a Christian being a socialist. So this would just be one of the latest heresies that we can file under our buddy Francis. So my goodness, I don't even know where I got like a half a dozen other things I like to talk about. Is there anything else you wanted me to specifically cover? You want to keep going with the pedo thing? One of the things I did want to mention was how there's talk. I'm sure you guys are seeing this from a lot of Christians, that there's talk that Francis is the biblical false prophet, and I want to kind of smash that theory down just using not only scripture, from what the early church fathers said would be characteristics of the real biblical false prophet. But if we can cover that later if you wanted to, but
yeah, we can do that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you want to do that? Okay, so folks, you know, I've said this recently. If you think Francis is bad, just wait to what's coming. He's not anything near what's going to be the biblical false prophet, even on who I deem to be the Antichrist, this Maitreya character. We talked about this guy last time. He's the ultimate social justice warrior. He's an uber socialist. You guys can get to his website. It's share-international.org. Well, anyway, Benjamin Krim. Yeah, he died a couple of years ago, but this is legit, folks. I take a lot of heat in the Catholic circle for mentioning this, but I'm telling you, there's one cardinal in the church, Cardinal Biffy, that kind of made an allusion towards him. You know, he basically was describing Maitreya without saying his name, and he was a recent cardinal in the church. But this is going to be our guy, and he's going to step onto the world stage after the stock market crash. He's slated, by the way, gentlemen, so you guys know, he's slated to first arrive on United States TV and speak internationally. So that would be kind of interesting because, you know, does Trump allow it? Is Trump even, you know, around? What comes after Trump? I mean, is it going to be someone like Bernie Sanders? I mean, again, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. It's just, I don't know at this point. I mean, maybe, you know, you pray and you hope, no matter what you say about Trump, that someone like Clinton or Sanders or someone else really doesn't get in the next time around. Because if it does, I think we're going to be in some very, very serious waters if that does occur. And who knows how this whole thing will shake out. Did you guys see how he was talking about there might be some civil unrest coming in November?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with that? Because that's pretty much follows our prophetic timeline from the Catholic side, is there'll first be a stock market crash, or however you want to call it, devaluation, it dropping to, I think you said you think it might go down to 4,000, 7,000, whatever it'll be, and cause all kinds of panic. But then after that, there'll be all kinds of social unrest, which I know you guys are seeing with the Antifa and all these anti-Trump, Soros funded protests going on. It's blacks versus whites. The latest is, you know, these Confederate statues now down in the South. The latest was, I think, the University of North Carolina is slated to have some type of you know, meet and greet, and I'm putting that in a sarcastic fashion over these Confederate statues. So, I mean, the New World Order wants to break us down on every level. It's the whole divide and conquer, you know, out of chaos comes order type of thing. And that's the only way they can stage this puppet to come. But anyway, I digress, gentlemen. One of the reasons why Francis is not the false prophet, and this comes from Catholic tradition, which won't normally be found in your normal like evangelical circles. One of the things the early church fathers said and make it very clear is that the real biblical false prophet will literally have the ability to stir up false signs and wonders in order to get people to follow the eventual Antichrist. Well, you know, let's be as honest as we can here, and we'll try to be as charitable as we can to our Freemason friend Francis. Do you see Francis calling down fire from the heavens anytime soon?
Yeah, he calls on fire in all the parties.
I mean, he reads like a
French kisser.
He reads like a Sunday morning comic. No one takes, not even the liberals take him seriously anymore. So what I'm saying is, I think we can scratch that one off, you know, of the box, that he just doesn't kind of fit the profile. Secondly, you know, with this Antichrist image to come, the whole abomination of desolation that I've been warning about for years, that will literally show up in Christian churches and in Masonic lodges. He will be actually the one to do it. There's no such, you know, he's not doing any of that activity. And I'm breezing through these really fast because I know we got to kind of keep moving here. He will be the one to actually install the new religion's self-realization sacraments. You see what's coming after Francis. They're going to create these pseudo sacraments in mockery of the Catholic Church. We've got 7 sacraments in the church. They'll have 7 as well, the New Age. And once this biblical false prophet arrives, you guys all know the routine. Eventually, the mark of the beast will be established, which, you know, ties in my opinion, to eventually to the digital economy / microchipping and all that good stuff. But really specifically, what St. Hildegard said is it's a counterfeit baptism, meaning no one will be able to buy or sell without handing themselves over to this Luciferian initiation, as David Spangler once said of the UN. So, you know, they're going to push not only Catholics and Christians out. I mean, you're going to have people who think this guy's a loon bin. You know, even, you know, pagans even say, no, this guy is, you know, he's ridiculous. I'm not taking his mark. So, but they're going to try to push us out of society. And that's why I encourage people to, you know, prep, get your communities prepared if possible. And then again, my question is, if he truly is the biblical false prophet, who is Francis pointing to that would indicate an antichrist in the world? You know,
oh man,
I mean,
like, that's the question, right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's sitting there arguing with Trump and all these other leaders. He's not pointing to anyone and saying, okay, you know, bow down and worship this guy. He's not setting up their statues. So a lot of people are missing this, and I see it, you know, on the Protestant side of things, but it's also some traditional Catholics I know, and like, these are men with degrees after their names, like doctorates. And I tried to talk to him on Facebook. I'm like, he just doesn't line up per what, well, not only Scripture says, but what Catholic tradition has to say. And really, there's been no attempted refutation of the things I say. And think about this: when he resigns, what are the people who say he's the false prophet going to say? You know, where's the Antichrist? If he just fades off into the distance and he is, you know, the Robin to the Batman, I mean, that totally crushes that argument if he does resign. So I'll leave it at that. It's just a few talking points there to just help people realize he doesn't at all fit the bill from what we know to be. And as egregious as he is, what's coming after him is, it's only going to get worse, folks, coming from the Vatican. So you might as well, you know, get your popcorn, you know, sit back and try to have, you know, a sense of humor as best as you can, because it's madness what's coming from the Vatican on these days. It's truly like a WWE staged event where, you know, people are, you know, these puppets, they're playing their part. We've got Cardinal versus Cardinal, this bishop versus that bishop. I mean, it's like a Jerry Springer show. That's what it is. The Vatican's a Jerry Springer show these days.
It really is, man.
What's on your hot plate? I'm talking too much here.
No, you're supposed to. You're the guest. I'm supposed to shut up.
I don't know. I was just wondering if there's anything you guys really wanted me to cover. I mean, obviously the pedo thing is just, That's the
Yeah, I mean, what's going on with the with let's delve a little deeper into that. Okay, I know from years ago there was actually a Vatican-owned piece of property out in Toronto. I think it's somewhere out, somewhere in Ontario, outside of Toronto. They've unearthed 20 or so child, bones. It was like a mass grave almost. Things of that. What do you think is the end game? Are these guys finally being fleshed out? Are we seeing a purge here? Are we seeing the final kibosh being put on these evil, demonic sickos?
Yeah, and I think Sean does a great job of this too. He brings on Liz Croak, and I'm trying to get her back on too, and she kind of unmasks a lot of this too. I have no doubt that not only are they, they're raping and using children for that measure, if you will, but yeah, there are kids definitely dying over this, and you hear all kinds of whistleblowers kind of coming out, and then they're attempted to be discredited. I know Sean recently had Fiona Barnett on the show. I'm trying to get her back on the show to discuss this a little bit more and just how the whole underbelly, if you will, works, because she's got some pretty cool stories and experiences to kind of relate to the masses. But the only thing I would caution against, guys, you guys have to be really careful with some of the sources, and I've been trying to explain this to many Catholics who are using this source, itccs.org, which is Kevin Arnett's page. And I used to run some stuff on Veterans Today, and I recently broke with them. Not going to be posting stuff there, but anyway, they let Kevin Arnett post there, and he's a straight loon bin. I'm he refers to God and the feminine and all this stuff. The organization,
what a nut job.
Yeah, this ITCCS thing, it's not even a real organization. So when you hear, there's a tribunal set up to try Francis upon trial, there's no such thing. It's not even an organization. It's just made up. It's fluff. But the actual accusations, I do believe. I mean, I wouldn't put it past it that these, and again, it's not just the Vatican, it's everywhere. It's with the world government leaders of what they're doing to children, but then, specifically people too. I mean, it's not just the children that are involved. So, yeah, it's really sad. It runs deep, V, and, I'm doing my best to try to get the best possible guests, whether it's whistleblowers, whether it's journalists, to come on to TradCatKnight.org and relay what we got to the public. But, outside of continuing to expose them, I'm not really sure what we can do, because they kind of control the judicial system as well. Yeah. So if they control the judicial system and they can get away with it, it's like, what's the point of even kind of bringing this stuff to light? They kind of just get away with it. As a matter of fact, there was a report, another breaking story I can break here. There was a traditional website apparently saying that Cardinal Wuerl, one of these cardinals implicated in everything we've been talking about, was on the run away from the United States judicial system. This is what broke yesterday, and apparently this website was trying to retract it now. So I really don't know what that is. I'm going to try to do a follow-up later today to see if it is, or what it is. But really, here's what I want you guys to understand. The plan of Masonry and Marxism is to make the Catholic priesthood look stupid, to make the Catholic Church look stupid, and to get people prepared for this new religion coming. So what I've been saying, I warned about this 3 years ago when Francis was basically on the scene. I could kind of foresee this arriving. I knew the pedophilia thing was going to pick up, and so I said this out to the public. I said, you guys know that the Occupy movements that are popping up, Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Portland, Occupy this, Occupy, Bob's Turkey and Grill, whatever. There's an Occupy the Vatican. Okay. And so this has been pre-planned long ago. They're going to stage these, how do I put it? Revolutionary. It truly is a revolutionary movement. Even on their insignia there, you'll see the communist fist. We must get rid of the priesthood. And so who's behind that and funding that. So it's they create the problem, right? And it is a problem. Let's be honest. I mean, on the objective level, it is a problem, but people have to identify that it's largely coming from the church's enemies. It's not from quote unquote Catholics, because hands off to you guys, and hands off to people like Sean, hands off to other shows that I do, because I've got a gigantic X on my back as a Catholic. I'm not really well received by like quote unquote conservative media, if you will, just because I'm Catholic. They won't even hear me out about any type of infiltration of the church or this, that. Just say, oh, you're Catholic, you know, you're pagan, you worship it, whatever. We don't want to deal with you. So it's kudos to you guys for getting out this information, because you guys are going to be the ones breaking the news stories that I'm able to relay at my website, you know, filter that information, and people can say, hey, you know, I heard that on, you know, Rogue News or whatever. So pay attention to that. Occupy the Vatican. I almost guarantee you over the next year or two, that is going to funnel into something very big. And it ties in with prophecy, with Benedict XVI actually having to have to flee Rome after the economic collapse here in the West, or stock market crash, or however you want to put it, reset. Right. And then all the civil unrest ensues. This is when it gets really crazy with the whole Islamic invasion. I mean, my goodness, I don't know if you guys are seeing some of these stories of just the hordes of some of these individuals raping, you know, young children out there who are mentally, how do we put this, mentally challenged. Voice of Europe does a halfway decent job, I think, at least.
Oh yeah, Voice of Europe does a damn good job.
Yeah, I try to recircle some. So it's really sad to see, and this follows Catholic prophecy that Islam would basically make its way up through Europe, and you know, they've been on record as saying they want to capture the Vatican by the year 2025. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, we know there's going to be a power play. I'm just suggesting to your folks, I don't personally think, and this is probably a very unpopular opinion, I don't think this thing fizzles out between the East and the West this time, meaning, you know, like it was in the 80s, it just fizzled out. I don't think it's going to fizzle out. Pray I'm wrong, and I don't know how it will happen. I just know that these NWO guys, they're all about truly wanting to depopulate the planet. They really want to have the Georgia Guidestones, you know, what they have down there in Georgia, come to fruition. They want to reduce the world by 90% so that they can control the rest of us. We'll wait and see what happens, but yeah, just a lot going on in the news. I don't know if I missed anything else this morning, if there's any other hot topics that I might have missed.
No, I think you covered the gambit, man.
What you guys been covering lately? You guys been covering pretty much the Syria situation. I haven't gotten a chance to get caught up and see what you guys put out the last.
Yeah, I think the Middle East is it's on fire right now.
Yeah,
it's hotter. It's on fire. So that's where we've been focusing on. We've been focusing on that, and some of the development that have occurred over here. The Mueller nonsense, the witch hunt. You know, all these things that are happening. That's also another thing that we've been focusing on as well. You know, so yeah. So that's basically been our focal point. I mean, I'll get into it when I come on your show, man. I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, that's good. We'll put a little bit of the breadcrumbs out for everyone. But yeah, a lot going on in the front of Earth changes too. This is an area that I try to keep track of. Probably something you guys might not normally watch, but it's getting a little bit dicey out there with the earthquakes. I don't know if you guys have been seeing the.
Oh my God, the Ring of Fire is up.
Yeah, this is an area, again, I don't want to get too conspiratorial per your crowd, but it is in Catholic prophecy that there is some massive planet headed towards our way, which is going to cause all types of earth changes and planetary changes and this or that. And I've had some recent guests on, like Terrell Blackstar, and he seems to think that this upcoming month, September, is what he calls the big jolt. So we haven't even seen anything yet. And I've been checking the USGS every day, and it's like 70 something plus earthquakes on most days. The whole, out there in the Ring of Fire there, the Pacific, Asia, I mean, 7.1s on a regular basis. Then we had that scary one out. Well, two of them. There was a 6.5 or 6.3 out in Oregon off of the coastline that scared some people. And that's why FEMA's been doing all these Cascadia Rising events, because they know it's about to happen. They're preparing for what they know eventually is going to happen. Then just recently there was a 4.5 in Los Angeles, and because I have a very strong contingency in that area. There's a big traditional Catholic community in Los Angeles, and they were tweeting me, they were emailing me saying, this one was a little frightening, because they go through an awful lot of earthquakes out there. Some of the people just kind of blow it over, but what we're seeing is the swarms that are happening, which were very similar. They're very similar to what happened shortly before the massive Mexico quake last year. It was like an 8 something, and I believe they had a minor tsunami, and there was like 500, 5.0 earthquakes after that massive 8.0, which wasn't recorded by the mainstream news. And so that's a little unnerving for people when you start to see all these earthquakes and sinkholes, and then take a look at what's going on in Hawaii. I mean, that place is getting ripped apart, a volcano going off. Then they just got hit with Hurricane Lane. I mean, that poor, it's just really bad. So, that's one area that we do try to focus in on at TradCatKnight, is all the latest earth changes. I don't know if you guys have been also seeing this. The Zionists, the Talmudists, are now saying there's more evidence to suggest the Messiah is here. Messiah mania hits fever pitch in Israel. There was another notable rabbi last week who said that the Messiah is here. And of course, we're not talking about our Messiah, because this particular sect does not like our Lord, if you read the Talmud, to put it mildly. And what I'm saying is they're staging the world for the Antichrist. And this is why my timeline is a little bit different than even most traditional Catholics, because the early church fathers said, once you see them starting to rebuild that third temple, and you see things starting to pick up in Jerusalem, you see all these embassies moving there, which is going to be the New World Order capital, by the way. The church fathers predicted that in the very earliest stages of the church. Know that it's going to get dicey, that this Antichrist figure that everyone talks about is about to arrive onto the scene. So there's more and more of these stories coming out. They're saying that they'll have this temple done over the next few years, which should cause at least people to take some of the things that I have to say a little bit more seriously, instead of just kind of whitewashing and say it's, conspiratorial talk. And I don't know, gentlemen, things are really heating up. Everything's kind of coming together on the economic front, socially, politically. We're kind of primed. There was one mystic that said everything during our times will be kind of hanging on like a thread. And so like once one thing happens, it kind of everything just happens like a domino effect. So in my opinion, once this stock market reset crash happens, it's just going to be one thing after another that we're going to be hit with. And this is also talked about on the enemy side of the fence. They also say there will be a fiery trial period in which basically a lot of people are going to die before their guy comes onto the scene and says, he's the savior of the world. We got to take his mark, and all that good stuff. So, yeah, a lot going on, man. Just, I feel like I'm giving like a Crazy Eddie infomercial here.
Crazy Eddie, the prices are insane.
Do you guys have that? I thought that was only local. I remember that.
No, man, we had Crazy Eddie up in New York. Absolutely. He went out of business eventually. It was Crazy Eddie. Then we had the Wiz. The Wiz was the hottest.
Oh, that's right, the Wiz. Yeah, because I grew up on the
Wiz. Nobody beats the Wiz. Nobody beats the Wiz. and then Best Buy came and crushed them all.
Best Buy, yeah, they came in. Oh, that's funny, yeah, because I grew up on the Jersey Shore, and I remember all those commercials. They were good.
Look, Crazy Eddie, the prices are insane.
That's what Francis can do after he quote unquote resigns. He could be the new front for Crazy Eddie.
He's got to do something. Crazy that or fly out with the French kisser.
Crazy Frankie's Electronics. I can see it now.
Crazy Francis Electronics. That's great. Funny stuff.
Oh man, so much going on. But yeah, folks, that's really what I wanted to get across today. I know these gentlemen are pretty busy. They got to get going here with their next venue, and I kind of have to get going here in a few minutes. But please don't equate the modern day Vatican to Catholicism. It's not Catholics doing it to you. It's largely these modernists, these Masons, these Marxists. They're all pretenders. They're false apostles, as Pope St. Pius X called them, meaning before Vatican II came about, he said, if you follow these points, A, B, C, D, you are deemed to be not Catholic. And guess what these post-Vatican II people are following? They're following these things. Therefore, we can deduce that they are the true new false apostles who are preparing people for this one world religion that's going to come, and it's going to be in Rome. So that's all I'm trying to get out there and warn people about, especially to those who are not Catholic predominantly. And again, keep your eye on Occupy the Vatican movement. You heard it here first at Rogue News. When you start to see that coming in the news, I will tell you that I believe that Benedict XVI will be pretty close to fleeing Rome. And eventually the Catholic Church, or the papacy, right, kind of like the home base, if you will, to the Catholic Church, in my opinion, will move and be in Fatima, Portugal. So at that point in time, when the biblical false prophet shows up and he establishes this new 7 pseudo set of quote unquote sacraments, that's not the Catholic Church anymore. And I'm going to preemptively say that, because I already can see, the mainstream media saying, this is the Catholic Church. No, that's not going to be the Catholic Church. It doesn't reside in Rome. The Catholic faith does not reside in Rome there. So, the other thing too, I don't know if I mentioned, we don't have too much more time, a couple minutes. I do another little section called Signs of the Times News. So I obviously relay, Days a Lot news and just some of the bizarro news that you're seeing in the media the other day. But I don't know if you guys caught this one. There was a guy down in Colombia who literally made himself to look into a lizard. And listen, I'm not going to hate. I got tattoos when I was, a big basketball stud in high school and college. So I'm not going to hate on people for that. But, when it comes to, wanting to make yourself look like a gigantic lizard, or, where do we stop? And the reason why I put that, because there was one notable early church father. His name was Saint Nihilus, and he talked about this apostasy in the Catholic Church. He talked about all the disasters which are about to happen, the tribulation, basically. But he also talked about people changing their appearance on purpose to where you wouldn't even recognize them as human beings anymore. So that's another sign that we are in those times. But I mean, I watched like a 2-minute video of him. I'm just like, what has to be going through your mind to make you want to change yourself into looking like, Larry the Lizard?
That's, I mean, it's what happens. I think that's going to be the next step for Bruce Jenner. He's going to be a lizard guy.
Jenner. What has he been up to? I haven't been following him. My gosh,
man. Oh my God. Well, Erik, thank you so much for being on, brother.
Appreciate it, guys. Again, get to TradCatKnight.org. Special guest podcast pick up next week. Live call-in shows, highly interactive. Want to see you guys there. And again, it's not just Catholics who are following us. Trust me, an awful lot of people who are not even Christian really follow my work. So get over there, TradCatKnight.org. The Gorilla will be there on the 4th, and he's going to be breaking down all the latest economics, geopolitics, all that he does. Thank you very much, guys.
And with that being said, we're over and out. Take it away, CJ.